Introduce our next speaker, Katrin. Katrin comes all the way from Switzerland. She's been living there for the last number of years, and she's really focused on everything around grants, EU grants, and helping organizations to apply and then to run these projects as well. She's got 3 focus areas, which are ICT, manufacturing, and logistics. So that's what she works on. Katrin grew up in East Germany, so she was there, grew up before the wall came down. And her first internet was actually the radio station, and she learned English by listening to her favorite band, which was Depeche Mode. So she somehow got in the albums, vinyl at the time, and then started listening to all the lyrics. So her first lyrics actually, or English, were all these lyrics to the Depeche Mode songs. In 1 year, she went to 4 Depeche Mode concerts. So can you believe it? That's a devoted fan. That's a big thing. And some people are recovering alcoholics or recovering, maybe they talk too much, but she is a recovering goth, but she still dresses in black and she likes black a lot. So, Katrin, I'm going to give you the stage, come on, and you're going to talk to us about the perspective and challenges of EU-funded projects. Take it away, girl.
Yeah. Thank you for the introductions, and thank you to the organizers that I can actually share my experiences here. Thank you for that. Okay, I don't know how this works, but let's see. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'm actually coming in a little bit from the practitioner side, but before I go into the history of my experiences with these projects, just let me briefly talk about myself. I actually started at Fraunhofer 22 years ago, a large research organization in Germany, and I was basically thrown into the cold water. You know, you speak English, let's write a proposal. And I had never done anything like that before. So luckily I could learn from some documents that were already there. And this is how I was, like, I think probably first exposed to project management in a certain way without actually even knowing it. After Fraunhofer, I was running a consultancy, so I just changed my perspective. So I was a project manager and a scientist, basically, at Fraunhofer. I became a consultant. I did that for 10 years. And now I'm a research manager in the research management office at the ETH, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland. I'm part of the International Grants Office, which is called EU GrantsAccess. And we are part of EUResearch. That's our national contact point. And instead of having an additional association for research managers, we are actually part of the EUResearch network. Coming to Switzerland about 12 years ago, what do you do? If you're Irish or English, you go to a pub and you learn to get to know other expats, basically. If you're German, what do? You become part of an association. So I was already part of the German Project Management Association, GPM. Reinhard mentioned that already. And I thought, okay, I'm already part of the German one, why not become part of the Swiss one? So that's what I did, and I'm actually a board member now for nearly 10 years, and I'm responsible for the working groups there, and a project management research workshop between the 3 German-speaking countries. In addition to that, because part of my job, it's also important to stay ahead of what's going on, so I became part of EARMA, which is the European Association of Research Managers and Administrators. Yes, it exists for nearly 30 years, I think now. And we actually have, so basically it's all these people at universities and research organizations supporting the researchers about the funding opportunities, the administration, the contract management, etc. And there are actually some countries these days, I think Finland is again the forerunner here, they have a pool of project managers at these offices as well. And then I'm also part of ISPIM, which is the Innovation Management Association. So that's in a nutshell. And now I would like to talk about the history of with the funded projects. Just to give you the context, what I'm talking about is, I'm talking about these large collaborative projects that are part of the Research and Innovation Framework Program that the Commission has set up in 1984. And we are currently in the 9th framework program, which is not called the 9th, it's called Horizon Europe. And basically projects are being supported with partners across Europe, sometimes also beyond Europe. And we're talking about research and development projects with 10, 15, sometimes 20 partners from different backgrounds. So it could be industry, large industry, small companies, research organizations, NGOs, etc. So this is my area of the past 20 years, what I've been doing. And you always need to have a nice logo and a nice name for the projects. So these are actually some of the projects that I was involved, all different types. So I don't really have a specific focus. I actually have a business degree background, and I've done projects in logistics and in life science, with China, with photovoltaic, and now with robotics, and also with entrepreneurship. And the funniest thing is that my first project was called Harmony when I was at Fraunhofer. And it was actually Harmony coping with the complexity of business innovation. The idea at that time was to actually develop a digital business plan writer. But as you know, sometimes it takes a long time until you get from the proposal to the project. So what happened was that already while we were waiting for the negotiations, someone else in the world came up with that product already. So we had to change focus, amendment, etc. And in the end, we were actually developing a knowledge management platform for startup coaches so that they could connect and work together in order to enhance the setup of startups and the coaching of the startups. So I was not involved at the beginning, and honestly, that was a project, one of the last projects in FP4. So that goes really a long time back. And also you can see, I mean, the money really has changed since then as well. So in the whole program, we had a budget of 13 billion euros. I got involved in 2001. And that was my first project. And now I come to my latest project, which is also called Harmony, which is like really closing the loop here. And that's a project in healthcare. So that's a project funded by Horizon 2020, which is the ETH framework program. And it's also one of the projects, or a project that was funded in one of the last calls of that program. And we're actually developing here robots not for the patients, but for the support of the healthcare professionals. And it's going to be some logistic, transporting something from A to B, you know, so the robot is actually engaging with the staff. So we also have big companies in there. So and we're just in the middle of the project, so I'm still hopeful that something will come out of that. Okay, going back to my first project, Harmony, just to give you a rough outline, what were the characteristics at that time and how that has evolved to these days today. That was actually a project with 12 partners, and Switzerland was included, and also Japan and Australia. That was actually very unique because they were not part of the framework program, so they had actually national funds, and it was all under the umbrella of the Intelligent Manufacturing Initiative. This is how they could participate. At that time, we had different funding rates for different activities. You had some usually management activities, dissemination, the research, demonstration, etc. So you had totally different funding rates for that. And also the funding that the partners received was also totally different. A large organization would get less, a university 100%, etc. And the communication, of course, it was more than 20 years ago, it was by email and telephone. I can still see myself having the telephone, typing in all the numbers to set up actually a telephone conference at that time. The reporting was actually done by the Commission at that time. No one, I guess, can believe that it was that case. And it was every 6 months. And it was really nitty-gritty because we had to write down all the person months to the dot point, comma, and it was like, and we actually sent by post all the receipts of all the travels that we did and all the expenses that we had. We sent them by post to the Commission. I mean, now it's unbelievable, but those were the times. And the meetings we did in physical, of course, every 6 months. And you won't believe it, we already used WebEx at that time. Probably one of the first tools that I can remember to do virtual conferences, but it cost 6,000 EQ at that time per month. And I mean, if you think about it today, everyone is also, because of the pandemic, used to having virtual conferences. That was very unique at that time. And we already used an iterative approach in the project as well, because we came up with a software that we developed, and we had an alpha and a beta version. So despite, using, like not being really aware of agile project management, but we already had like this iterative approach at that time. And of course, you had part of the description of your project, you had actually project management included. So you had to outline at that time, what is the project organization? Do you have a steering committee? How would you handle conflicts, etc.? And you also had a report on that as well. So in between, I had a couple of other projects, and one of my other projects that was very significant to me, it was SME Empower, which was partly with some of the partners that were involved in Harmony. Obviously, once you find partners that are reliable, you stick to them. So SME Empower was between 2005, 2007, again, business innovation. Basically, we tried to make companies fit or engage them to become partners in FP7. So we were working together with manufacturing companies. We had a certain also coaching process and approach, and we would try to help them to get involved in the next framework program. So we were here 10 partners. At that time, it was very important to have Eastern European partners in your project. As you probably remember, when I started, it was important to have someone from Ireland in the project, from Greece or from Portugal and Spain, so your chances would increase to actually get the project. And here it was partners from Eastern Europe. We were very successful setting that up. At that time, that project was not really a research project, it was a specific support action, so it was more like an accompanying measure. We had cost models, also not used anymore, again, different activities, and somehow at some point the Commission thought, let's limit management activities to 7% of the overall funding budget. Where that came from, we don't know, but we had to stick to it, so we did that. Communication, we actually had our own tool, the knowledge-based tool that was actually developed in Harmony, and we used it for communicating and for document sharing within this project. Reporting here has slightly changed, whereas in the previous Harmony project, the Commission was doing the job, the financial reporting for us. Now we had to do it, and they would actually ask for less documents at that time. But still, we had every 6 months, we had the reports. And in order actually to better steer the project, we implemented a monthly reporting system. And meetings we did virtual. At that time, Skype was very big, so actually we had, and with some working groups, we had weekly meetings. And the good thing was, I was doing a project management certification at the same time. And that really helped me. Before, it was more like learning by doing. Once you write proposals, you're actually imposed with project management terminology without actually really knowing what it means to you, because you're exposed to objectives. You need to have objectives, you need to have work packages, you need to have a Gantt chart, and okay, what is it? And with that certification at the University of Magdeburg, that went for about a year, and was similar or at the same level, at the level D of IPMA. And what I learned, I could actually directly translate into my project. And we had meetings every 3 months. We would meet for, 3-4 days. Our kickoff meeting was so well prepared that we did our kickoff for 3.5 days. That was my only project where we could have such a long kickoff meeting. Never ever again I had kickoffs like that, so intensive. Actually, one of my worst projects was a project where we had a kickoff for 1 day, and I actually refused to go there. And I think it was partly online as well, and I actually was in touch with a colleague from a Spanish institute, and by, I don't know, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they were still at work package number 2, and the coordinator came too late and had to leave earlier, and of course this project was not that super successful, I must admit. In between or since then, there was a lot that went on. What I've seen over the past 20 years, although we were the first ones using WebEx, there was a lot more coming up in terms of virtual tools or tools for virtual teams, because obviously you cannot meet all the time, and you have to interact in between. We saw the rise of some cloud-based management systems. Some actually also evolved from European projects. And what I also experienced was that every project uses different tools. So when I was at Fraunhofer, we could kind of impose tools because we were big enough. As a consultant, I had to use all kinds of different tools, and the drawback was a little bit that you would at the kickoff you would introduce the tool, do the training, etc., and then 6 months later, everyone was back to email. That's a bit of a pity. We had the development of the participant portal from paper to PDF, so that was a big thing. We saw certifications, etc., and also a lot of large projects, which I'm not really a friend of, I must admit. I just saw I have to move on a little bit. Now with Harmony, my current project, I started last November. We're now 10 partners. Funding is all the same. There's so much more simplicity. Communication, of course, we're using all what is available right now. Reporting is through the funding and tender portal, so nothing sent by post. We even had to, 20 years ago, send the deliverables by post. And now everything you can upload. Our reporting is every 12 months, because we have by DG Connect. They have different rules there, apparently. And we also have review meetings, and of course, everyone knows now Zoom and Teams. The challenges with the Horizon Europe that we have now, they completely deleted the chapter of project management. And I'm not really a big fan of that, because at least in the past you had to expose and think about it. Now it's deleted, and I think it actually, from my point of view, it decreases the importance of project management. The funding and tender portal is just for the administration. You can't actually manage the project with that. It's basically just a document sharing system, which I also find, or I think there could be more potential. Then also our deliverables. We submitted deliverables by the end of June, and they are laying there now until next March, before we have the review meeting and the reviewers actually look at that. What a waste, honestly. And also it's then too late to actually change anything in the project. A lot of times we have experienced that the project officers are not really familiar with the research topics, so they only look at it from the administrative side and can't give advice. Of course, every project has the different tools. The amendments take quite long, and also, I mean, in our case it's 12 months, but in all other cases it's mainly 18 months, the reporting. And honestly, I mean, how can you stir a project if you only report after 18 months? And I've never seen a project that has been cancelled as well. Recommendations: invest in the kickoff meeting, as we did, provide training for the tools, regular exchange with the partners. We actually installed in some of our projects a communication by the coordinator, so we have like a monthly newsletter. Meetings, I have a certain method now that I introduced for my meetings when I organize them, that like the first part is looking at the past. Then we have working groups. We actually split the consortium, and then at the end we also look into the future. And we also have a big presentation, poster wall, etc., to give space to all the partners. I think it's also important to implement your own reporting in the project. What worked really well is having a joint dissemination event at the end of the project, because it brings all the partners together. Lessons learned, we did that a few times in the projects, and we celebrate our achievements. I think that's one of the most important things. What do I wish for the future? I mean, we've got the funding and tender portal. It has taken a lot of time, but I think it could be also turned into a project management platform, because otherwise every consortium is paying, implementing a new platform, and I think we could actually save that money. I also believe that probably smaller projects, shorter reporting cycles, and quicker processes would probably accelerate the turnout, the outcomes of the projects. Increased responsibility by the Commission. It's taxpayers' money, and no one seems to be responsible because it's still sometimes questionable how the outcome of projects is actually going to the market. There we have a huge gap in Europe. Maybe an idea could be to install program managers. It would be also wise to have interactions between the different projects, because sometimes you have the same projects running but in different DGs and they don't know about each other. Strengthen project management. That's a huge thing, and maybe PM² can help with that. Like a little bit in public procurement, where you actually ask what kind of experience you have or certification you have in project management, but obviously that has been deleted. Then I think it would be also a good idea to actually follow up projects after 2 or 3 years to have a bigger responsibility here. In Israel, they have the scheme that they actually have returns on the project outcomes, could be also an idea. And evaluations by citizen engagement, because sometimes the evaluations are quite subjective. And maybe match some of the projects with crowdfunding, could be maybe an idea as well. Okay, last slide, because my time is up. I actually, because I think the next big thing is AI. That's also my personal topic. And you're probably aware that we have now this text-to-image programs online. So I used 3 different ones, and I just typed in the future of project management. And this is what came out of it. And the first one is really gloomy. I hope we're not going that way. I think the last one is a bit more hopeful and shining. It's a bit like a church at some opening. So that's what I'm hoping for, that project management, in addition to what Reinhard said, is really making a stance, and we need all those million project managers, and also for the research and development projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to type into that AI, Belgium 1, Croatia 0, and see what was shown. Okay, we got some time for some questions. Anybody got any questions? And while you're thinking of the first question, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Starting off. So, I think you mentioned that when you apply for a European grant, that in the grant application form, you don't actually need a project management system, or to show that you don't have to have a project management system. Is that correct?
Now with the new program, that's true. In the past, you had in the proposal, you had a whole chapter on implementation, where you would outline the project organization, you know, what are the responsibilities of the coordinator, the work package leaders, etc. But now this, because of space, they wanted to reduce the number of pages. They have deleted that particular chapter.
So do you still think it matters?
I mean, although I know...
In the application, do you still... Because when you apply, you get points on your
Yes,
application.
yes.
So do you think if you have a chapter in there on how you're going to manage the project, do you think it's going to help?
Well, in the past, it was part of the evaluation criteria. And of course, many times this was a bit of a copy-paste. But still, sometimes you saw some really nice new approaches. And I feel that because it's not part of it anymore, the partners are not really considering it. And,
okay.
And obviously it also doesn't matter for the evaluators, because they don't get to see it.
That's, oh yeah, okay, yeah, because it's not on the, on the application form.
It's not on the application form. And the other thing I would also like to address
Jesus.
is, because I've been working a lot with academia, but also industry. In Fraunhofer, there was not really a formal project management education or training. Even at ETH, I mean, we have something for PhDs. And then we have in different departments maybe a 2-hour project management course for students. Sometimes it's 3 days, but that's it.
So learn project management in 2 hours, okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's great. We have a question here, please.
Which European program are you talking about? Because, for example, the Erasmus Plus program puts even more emphasis on the project management.
I'm only talking about Horizon Europe, the research and innovation framework program that goes back to the 19. I'm not really involved in Erasmus, but in Horizon Europe, because they reduced, I think, the number or the number of pages to 45 now, if I remember correctly. So they skipped the implementation chapter in a certain way. Yeah.
Okay, because in Erasmus Plus, especially here with EPOS, the national entity that's organizing it, they put even more emphasis now with the new budget on project management.
But unfortunately, not here.
Oh, that's strange. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anybody else? Please, Laurent.
Thank you, Katrin. I know we have this tendency to say it was always better in the past. But now, looking at all this experience, do you think it's easier today to run projects, these type of projects, or is it harder than before?
That's a very good question. I think it helps if you have some project management background. At least in my case, it helped a lot. I mean, although I kind of already did some of the things that you actually are supposed to do when you manage a project, but I was missing the theoretical background at that time. And when I look at it today, I mean, still in the scientific world, you know, professors don't have to do timesheets. And project management is still kind of perceived as, oh, it's a little bit of administration, you know, but I think it can have a huge impact if you want to get something out of the project. And this is where we're not really focusing on. I mean, it's nice to collaborate with all these partners and to get together and have meetings and develop something, but the focus is usually still on the publication side. I mean, even in my current project, we're very good at the publications, but we're challenged by the reviewers. What is the business, the commercialization part? We're slightly weak on that one, and I have seen that with many other projects as well. And I think we could do much better, and I think project management could help us, if implemented properly, to actually get outcomes that can be transferred to the market.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Katrin.
Thank you.
Okay.